Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of PharSide Pholios, where we are celebrating National Read a New Book Month in the month of December. For all of you who love all things books and authors and writing and genres across the spectrum, we're here to celebrate authors and their works. And so we welcome to the far side today author J.W. Jarvis, whose dream has always been to write children's books. Reading to children when they're young sets them up for a life of learning and reading. And he believes that he loved to read to his son when his son was younger. And so with that experience, he desired to become a part of that culture to help shape kids and develop that joy and love of books and reading. And so he wants to provide children with books to help them form their dreams and aspirations. And then we are fast forwarding to present time where he's writing for tweens, all of our in-between readers. And that's a hard group to write for. And we're excited that he's launched to write for that age group in that genre. And so he's attached to himself to that writing, and he's currently writing a science fiction thriller for adults. So that'll be coming in the foreseeable future. So it's going to be something that you won't be able to put down. And so you'll be able to find works for your middle schooler, tween, teen, young teen reader, and then you'll have a book for yourself. So welcome to the far side, J.W. Jarvis.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We are talking about this first in the series of books that you're doing about first responders, entitled The Phantom Firefighter. From the onset of writing this particular project, did you know that it was going to be a series, or did you think, I'm just doing one book and see how that goes, and then, maybe do something else?
Yeah, that's a good question. I originally started as a chapter book for even younger kids, and then I liked the story so much that I wanted to make it longer. So I decided to make it more of a middle grade young adult book. So it's right in between there. And yeah, I did want to do a series because I wanted to be able to, devote one book to each sort of position in the first responders. So it's so at the very minimum, it'll be a trilogy of firefighters, police officers, and EMTs.
And so with that, what inspired you to focus on first responders? Did you have some kind of connection, or were there, people of interest, growing up? So what drove you to writing about those first responders?
I always, I always I was always fascinated, with their the efforts they do, and the things that they have to go through. I feel like they're putting their lives on the line and completely unselfishly to help others and to secure our environment or our cities. And I just felt like my skills landed more in the IT realm, so I focused more on IT. I didn't go into that line of work, but I thought it would always be fun to do that. I always thought it'd be good to be a first responder, but it's just my skills more landed in the computer realm. So I was like, well, I'd rather, maybe I can just take some of the things I love about those professions, and research it a little bit and write about it, and maybe inspire some other young folks to go down that path.
And you mentioned research. So what kind of research did you find yourself doing to help you shape these stories about the first responders, particularly for Phantom Firefighter?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I wanted to be a story that kids can, I wanted to be a fantasy magical thing. So the research was needed to make the scenes believable, but the scenes are also magical, right? In some way. So there's some of it's of course made up, but I believe that there's real magic even in the real world. I think we just don't see it, right? We call it something else probably, but luck or whatever you want to call it. But so I decided, well, let me do some research about certain situations that these firefighters have to go through. And so I did a lot of research online. Um, for my second book, I've actually talked with a police officer, a sheriff, and heard some of his experiences. So a little bit of interviewing, a little bit of research online. But as I said, it's not there are situations about firefighting, but it's not a book about how to be a firefighter. It's more about what are the situations they go in, and then how does the fantasy realm take over those situations.
And so, you know, going into, you're writing for tweens, writing for children. Um, what made you, I guess, dive into or connect to fantasy as a way to reach that middle grades audience?
I think because to me, fantasy is fun to read. It moves fast.
Mhm.
You can add an element of adventure to it, and I want kids to be drawn to books. Like I said, my goal is to get more readers out there. I just truly feel there's too much digital stuff in the world that's distracting them, and I think digital's got its own place, but I think books really take the mind a different place, and it actually helps your mind um, fire, right, and grow. And I think you don't get that from digital content, right? You're just kind of a participant. Whereas when you're a reader, you're actually sort of developing these things in your mind, these scenes, right? You're trying to see you're trying to imagine what they would actually look like. And so that's why I wanted to work with that group because they're this is a group that's finally out of picture books, right? They're reading actual text now, and so they can actually even the pictures don't the pictures sort of also in those books they kind of force them down a certain path, whereas when you're reading text you have to develop it in your mind, right, what you're seeing. So that's what I thought was interesting, and that's where I feel like it's the best bang for the buck for the kids. They start to develop their minds by reading this new text, right, this fantasy text.
And I appreciate that as an educator, um, that have a story, that the characters are so well developed that you do create images and pictures, with how the scenes flow and how the words flow. So to see that you know in a book designed for middle grades, especially first responders, I believe that um, it'll be a high interest, become one of those high interest reads for middle grade boys, because what young boy, um, I'm thinking of some of my elementary students about who are show interest in wanting to grow up to be a firefighter, or especially during when we have fire safety day, and the firemen come to the school and they get to go up on the truck and things of that nature. So it's the way you shape the story, is really stands out to me. And so the book starts off itself with these words: Noah was in a bad situation. He had to keep running swiftly or he would have slipped off the narrow, windy old bamboo bridge. So the reader jumps right into what appears to be not an ideal situation of anxiety, fear, and caution for safety's sake. Um, how will, kind of that scene, how will that initial situation shape Noah's reactions and responses for future events and story, especially when you get to the point where you realize, wait a minute, he's just playing a video game?
Yeah, yeah. So what's interesting about that is, and you'll notice in the book and the future books, is that so Noah is a bit of an adventurer. He's a risk taker. So and I think some of it has come from the fact that he plays games and he likes to be a risk taker even in his games. So when something happens to him in real life and it turns out that he needs to take some risks, he kind of goes in, head first, right? Now, the funny thing about it is he meets a new friend, Danielle, um, and she's more of a bookworm, smart person, and she's a little more careful. So she's sort of the cool thing about it is she sort of balances him out because he's a little bit more off the cuff, and she's a little more calculated. So together they go through this adventure, and it starts in the first series and continues on, or the first book and continues on.
Okay. And then, you think about, as, stories go, you have your characters, and then you also have, setting,
Mhm.
and so now you've moved from kind of that, character at home playing video games, and the background kind of story between, what's going on in Noah's family, dynamic, and
Mhm.
how he was, dealing with divorce and his perception of what happened, you know with his parents.
Mhm.
And then we get to a place of doing something nice, being able to spend some quality time with his dad, and wind up at a store covered in
Mhm.
ivy that has never been noticed before, operated by an old woman with long silver hair, glasses pushing against a wart with hair coming out of it. You can't get the image out of your head once you get that description.
Yeah.
And the non-purchase of a book. Okay, you're going into the bookstore and you're coming out with a book that you did not have to pay for, called The Fearless Firefighter. So what was so special about this book that a kid that's just into video games is drawn to an old book in a old looking rundown bookstore filled to the brim? It makes me think of some of the like independent bookstores in the
Mhm.
area, or
Mhm.
old bookstores that have been around, and you can get, likely find some first editions or older editions of certain books, up in this area. We've got a good number of, nice independent bookstores. But
Yeah.
it put me in that mindset of what this store could actually look like.
Yeah.
And this woman who, with the wart, I'm like, okay, there's something up with her. What is it,
Yeah.
that, a kid who's video game oriented is drawn to pick up a book?
So one of the things that Noah and his dad have done traditionally ever since he was a kid, and this is from my experience too, right? When I had with my son, is they read together. And one of their things now that he can read is they share the reading experience. So they'll each read a chapter, right? They'll take turns reading chapters tonight, but each night before they go to bed. And it's just a nice thing to do together before they retire for the day. And so they're doing that. So they it's been their tradition. And so and Noah likes to read as well. He loves video games, but he also loves to read. And being the fact that he has no friends in this new town just seemed like a nice thing. Let's get another book. Let's get a new book. And then they find this store, and this store is weird. It's not a library, it's a bookstore, but it's not really a bookstore because they're not paying for it. So he's super excited because he doesn't have to use any of his allowance. It's just, like so it seems like the best of both worlds, and everybody's like, oh, this is great. So until they find out what the book is really about. So but yeah, it's just a chance for them to do a little bonding, but it's quite the bonding experience this time.
So, without giving the whole story away, what's the premise behind the Phantom Firefighter?
So the premise is that they find a book, and it's a strange book, as we said, and it what it is actually a diary of a firefighter's experience that he wrote, and it's real experience. So it actually happened in the past. Um, and what happens is before they, it takes a little time for them to figure it out, but they figure out that magically they get pulled into that
Mhm.
experience. And so then now they're possibly changing history by what they do. So they have to be very careful. And then what happens when they're not careful and they mess it up? And then and then there's a new experience, and here you have a tween trying to figure out how to be a firefighter. He's got the mindset of a firefighter, but does he have the courage of a
Mhm.
firefighter when he just started being a firefighter to help lead a troop into a dangerous situation? So it's a very so he has to kind of come to grips with some of the new experiences. And then the other thing is there's a magical part of it. There's a phantom involved that comes into the story, and they're trying to figure out why is the phantom here, and what is the phantom doing here? Why is he here? What can he do for us? Is he helping? Is he hurting us? So you start to learn all that as you read through the book.
So from like the moment that Noah realizes that there's something different about the book, towards and even going towards the end, how do you feel like Noah has grown, or you see Noah grow in terms of his, personality and his ability to handle challenging situations, going from doing chores or having to do chores to like being in life saving, having to think quick on his feet type situations.
So it's one of those things where it's sort of a good and bad situation for him. So he loves the fact that it's a new adventure, but he's also a little nervous because he hasn't done this before. And so he relies on some advice from his father and then also from his friend,
Mhm.
and tries to and realizes that he's not alone, right? That he's, even though he's in a new town by himself, and his parents split up, he's not alone. He has people that can help him, and so he helps leverage those folks in his life to help him get through these new adventures.
Now, since the Phantom Firefighter is the first book in the first responder series, will you are we seeing the same characters, main characters, in the rest of the series, or will we see a you know change in characters where maybe one character fades out and then another character is developed? So
So
how's
for, yeah, so for now, we'll see. I mean, the third book hasn't been written yet. The second book has been written, but in the second book, yes, the adventure for Noah and Danielle continues,
okay.
and you find out a little bit more about the bookstore lady,
Okay.
which is something you didn't something much more detailed about her, and
Mhm.
then also there's a little bit more. Relationship building with Danielle's mother and her brother. So they come into the story, and then you'll also find out some interesting things about some characters that I won't name that are in the first book, and something occurs with them. So that the twosome have to figure out. So it's yeah, there is definitely the second book is for sure a complement to the first book, where it takes the story a little further, a little more detailed.
All right. And you did say that this is set to be a trilogy.
Yes,
Um, Set
yes.
to be a trilogy. Um, so, with this, you've got a first responder series. Um, to be released. And so how do you plan to take a break at any point and write something like totally different? Or you feel like you've really found your niche in, you know, children's YA fantasy writing, or do you want to jump into a different genre, whether it's sci-fi or mystery or crime
Yeah.
or, or
So I will write the third book for this trilogy in next year. That's for sure. And I am currently writing a adult, as you mentioned earlier, adult sci-fi thriller. And that is something, I have an idea that I think that kind of is a follow up
Hmm.
to something that happened about 50 years ago in the entertainment world. So I have an idea of how to mature it into the real world, and so our current world, I should say. And so I'm writing a book about that. So that's going to be for adults, not for kids. But it should be a fast paced mover as well. I love to keep people on their toes in my story. So like as you end the chapter, you're going to want to go to the next chapter. So yeah, that's coming out. I'm hoping it's my first entry into the novel area. I mean
Okay.
the first responder series is novellas.
Mhm.
So they're under 40,000 words. But my first entry into the novel is going to be this thriller.
So, what is something, maybe uh, one or two things that you hope readers, young readers, will take away from reading The Phantom Firefighter?
I hope that our readers have a deeper appreciation of those careers. I think like they obviously they see them on TV, their shows, and then they have people that, they have the firefighters that visit the schools, and and it's pretty cool to see them in real life, right?
Mhm.
But also to understand some of the struggles they have in some of the situations and how dangerous they really are, and some of the quick thinking they have to do. So I'm hoping that they have a deeper appreciation. And then my second thing I'm looking for is I really hope it inspires, even if it inspired one kid to become a firefighter, I think that would be great. Just because I think those service industries are understaffed,
Mhm.
um, and really could use the help. So I'm hoping that was the other reason I wanted to write the series, was I wanted to get a little more visibility to those careers, because I think they are in need of more people, and these public servants. So
All right. So thank you for, sharing that. And I think that's really important um, for our, students to know that there are options. They have all of these career path options, and as far as, you know, you know, going to school or training to be a firefighter, or, training for, going to police academy, or the school for, EMTs. So they've got all of these options, and, they're without limits, really. And
mm,
so being able to have that connect to an actual story, I think is a powerful thing. Um, is it have you, as you've written, um, or writing, tween, YA, middle grades, books, um, have you thought about, what would, you would recommend to maybe classroom teachers who would pick up your book and read through it and say, this is something I want on my shelf in my classroom library, and might would like to use this as, something to draw the interest, in particularly of my boys,
mm.
in the classroom. So are there, any like guiding questions that you would, provide, or suggest or recommend for classroom teachers to think about if they were to pick up your book and say, I want to use this in my classroom?
I would say I think if they're looking for something where kids go through things in their personal lives, and we don't always know about it in school. And I think this is will touch some of those kids, that some of them that have been impacted by the pandemic.
Mhm.
So I think it just shows that there's others out there, even if it is fictional. It's it can be real, and and then also there's this friendship element that he grows with Danielle, and I think that's important, that kids are open to new friendships, and sometimes some of the friends they have, maybe they should remove those friends from their lives and add new friends that are better, right? So I think it has a good touching friendship element. One of the books that I read, that I really liked, that it was about friendship, was and I don't know, it's been out for a while, but maybe some schools still recommend it, but Bridge to Terabitha is a book that I like, and it was a really sweet story about a friendship, and it was another one of my inspirations for writing a book where it's not just about the parent-kid relationship, which is important, but it's also about bringing good friends into your life even when you're young.
And then you mentioned um, the piece of the pandemic, and kids having to respond, and Noah has had to process all of that transpired, within the pandemic, with the strain on his parents' relationship and the eventual breakup. So why was, including that pandemic piece important part, or a detail within the story?
I think because it shows that there's some struggle with the character, and everybody wants to, it's not as, I guess sometimes, so just naturally it's not as interesting when somebody has it all, right, and they don't have any struggles. I mean, even though we know everybody behind the scenes has some struggle, but I think elaborating on the family struggle that happened with his parents, and then the fact that. There's nothing you can do about it, right? I mean, it wasn't the parents' fault, it wasn't the kids' fault. There's nothing you can do about it. There's some external influences that happen to kids, and they can't do anything about it. And just wanted to show that it can happen anytime, right? And so, how do we deal with that? How do we grow from that? And there's ways to do that by bringing other people into our lives, right? If we lose somebody close to us, so.
Something that's unique also with this project is that the 3% donation to the First Responders Children's Foundation. Where did that idea kind of come from?
Well, I always felt like, it's kind of like if I'm doing something, and let's say I'm making something from something that I've completed, if I'm making some sort of money from it, I feel like it's always good to give back. I think I think the more we give, the more we get, and I think it's important to think about it that way, with everything we do. And so I thought, I was reading about, what are the different first responder type charities. And when I found this one, it touched me because this foundation actually helps kids that have lost a parent in the line of duty, which happens. It still happens today. There's all this fancy technology and equipment, but it doesn't matter. It's still very dangerous, and people lose lives, or kids lose their parents because their parents were these heroes, right? And so this foundation actually helps provide monetary funds for those kids to further their education or help them because they just don't have the other parent. And so I was like, well, I'll give some of my profits back, and right now it's going to be small, but I'm hoping over time it'll be big, and I can impact another kid's life, but a real kid that's part of a family where they had that struggle, right?
So, and I think that's the heart of what educators do, what first responders do, what writers do, as we're to give back in different ways. And um, that's a powerful choice to do that. And so we applaud you for that. And so and this is for those who are watching live and will catch us by a replay. We're here with J.W. Jarvis to talking about the Phantom Firefighter, and realize when you purchase this particular project that 3% of your donation is going to go to the First Responders Children Foundation. So this is read a new book month, and what better way to give back and plant a seed in a child's life than purchasing a book for that, you know, that struggling reader, that non-reader who's always bored or first to go to video games. This I'd highly recommend this for your middle grades. Youngsters as a really great read. And it's not limited to by gender. Girls will love it just as well as the guys. So dive into this new book, The Phantom Firefighter by J.W. Jarvis. So can you tell our audience and those who are watching live and those who will catch us again by replay how they can connect with you and purchase a book and connect with you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on, it's real easy. My website is www.authorjwjarvis.com. And then my Facebook, Instagram handles are also author JW Jarvis. So you can find me there. I'd love to have you join my VIP reader club, which you can do through my website. I don't spam. All I do is 1 or 2 newsletters a month, just to kind of keep you up to date on what's happening with the books, promotions, discounts, things like that. So very limited. You won't get a lot of emails. It just keeps you informed on my writing. But you can sign up there on my website, and then also you can join. Of course, follow me on my social media, and then the book is available on Amazon, of course. So in multiple countries. So it's available for the ebook is available for $3.99 on Amazon, and the paperback is $10.99.
All right. Well, thank you, J.W. Jarvis, for hanging out with us this afternoon. And we wish you continued success with the Phantom Firefighter and the completion of the series. When does book 2 drop?
The ebook for book 2 is now on Amazon right now.
Okay.
The paperback will be out in January. So
Awesome. So we are looking forward to reading the next in the in the saga, the trilogy, and so we're excited. So remember, all of our live viewers and replay viewers, this is Reading a New Book Month. It's December, and what better gift to give than the gift of reading for your young teen, tween, in between, young ager, you know, this will be a perfect stocking stuffer and gift. The Phantom Firefighter, and we're excited about the drop of the second book. Being available in ebook form in this month, and then of course in January, in the paperback edition. So we're excited about this particular project of the First Responders series and all of the things that he has coming down the pipe, so to speak. So continued success and luck to you in your writing, and we'll definitely be following you on social media and subscribe to your website so we can be in the know of the things that are rolling out. So we're going to tell our live viewers and those who will catch us by replay, make sure you're staying tuned to the PharSide Co-Ed Book Club Facebook page for more amazing author interviews and posts as we celebrate Read a New Book Month during the month of December. So until next time, many roots, many voices are a part of the infinite story. So plant your seed. Have a great and wonderful day.